Hey everyone, this is going to be a really short video on asking questions. I just wanted to cover a couple of things before you start the application portion, and it's easier just to share it with you verbally. Remember that when we talked about making goals and why a good theory is helpful, in the end, when you're ready to make the goals and to intervene with families, having the right information on the front end can predict how effective you can be. If you can have an impact on the family and help them be closer together, then you're going to be able to be more effective in getting them to produce change and work with you. And so asking the right questions is really one of those major predictors. And so in the article that you read, it talked about asking questions in the right sequence. I want to talk a little bit about sequencing of questions because there's kind of two different approaches to sequencing questions. One approach is kind of a linear approach. And this is be typical if you're going to do something like you're talking about a timeline or you're talking about a sequence of events that follow a specific pattern, what happened next, and then what happened and what happened after that. Or if you want somebody to track where you're headed with the questions, and sometimes you do want them to track that. So if you're an educator and you're talking to a parent about their kids struggle with reading, you might want to talk to them about when they started reading and what were some of the things that they noticed when the kid first started reading. Then you might want to go on to what was first grade like and what was second grade like and what was third grade like. They know where you're headed with that line of question up until their grade. That's a good thing. If you want them to follow and you want them to see that you're intentionally sequencing these questions to lead up to something, that helps them track what you're thinking. And so sometimes it's really important to keep linear in your questioning. Other times you want to purposely go circular. And so sometimes you want to ask questions that look at the same issue from different vantage points. Do you always read with the kids? Do grandparents sometimes read? Are there different books that they like to read? Are there times of day that they like to read? So you see that you're kind of going around in the sequence of questions in a way that allows them to look at the same issue from a bunch of different vantage points. That's kind of circular questioning. And so linear is in this straight line, this pattern where they see you coming, they see what you're asking and why you're headed down that road. Circular allows you to get at different vantage points. I will oftentimes use circular questions to be able to spring a question on somebody when they don't see it coming. And sometimes I like to do that because I want to see their nonverbal reaction just as much as their verbal answer. I'm not trying to be tricky. I'm just trying to get their kind of gut knee-jerk reaction. And so an example of this, going back to the reading thing, might be you're talking about, did you read with your kids? And, do their parents read with them? Do their grandparents read with them? And you're asking, what do they like to read? And are there times a day that they like to read? So kind of that circular question. And then you can throw in a question that says, did you struggle with reading as a kid? Now, that question, you're going to get a more authentic answer than if you lead up to the question where you're telling them where you're headed. And it might be really valuable, especially if you're using Bowen, to know if they struggled with reading as a child. But the more you can kind of catch them with that question, the more the nonverbals are going to validate what they're saying verbally. And so circular questions and linear questions are sequential. It's important to use them purposefully. And that's the only point of all of this, is how are you going to purposefully use the questions? Be specific and intentional about the types of questions. So circular and linear is about patterns of questions, whether you're stringing them together intentionally or whether you're coming at it at different vantage points and kind of working around the issue. Another thing that I want to talk about that one of the pages had was a little bit about influencing and orienting. And sometimes people think that the influencing type of question is a bad question. But if you have a teenager that comes in that gets caught for shoplifting, or if you have a family that comes in where the child is struggling with reading, each of those, you as the professional have a specific outcome that you're shooting for. With the reading issue, you want to help the kid learn how to read. If it's math, you want to help them be better at math. You don't want to try to find out whether the parents care. And if they say, no, we don't care about reading, you don't want to just say, okay, fine, I don't care about teaching your kid to read either. If the kid comes in, the teenager comes in and says, Yeah, I got busted for shoplifting. I don't think there's anything wrong with stealing from other people. It's just a matter of trying to not get caught. You don't really want to just accept, hey, then I'll help you how to learn not how to get caught. What you really want to do in that moment is to try to say, I need to influence this situation and figure out how to get them to a place where they don't steal from other people, right? And so influencing questions are just a purposeful, what are you trying to accomplish with this line of questions? Now, orienting questions are just trying to help you understand something. And so you might ask a lot of questions that you don't care what the outcome is. So if they're struggling with reading and the family gets on board with, yeah, we need to help our kid with reading, and you ask them questions like, what kinds of hobbies do you have as a family? You don't really care if they like to go ice skating or if they like to go camping. All you care about is that you can try to tailor the assignments for reading and the activities that you're going to get them to the activities and the hobbies that the family has. And so what you're doing in those moments is you're structuring your questions to try to understand what's going on in the family so you can use that to help better improve and strengthen the family. But you don't really care the outcome of the question. You're trying to understand them, not have them get to something specific. And so orienting helps you understand something, influencing helps to explore and tries to maneuver and push a specific process. And that isn't bad. It isn't bad that you're trying to push something. This isn't the manipulative questions. And this influencing and manipulative, there's a line there that you have to be really careful of. If people feel manipulated, they're going to shut down. So questions like, don't you want to be a successful adult? That's a manipulated question, a manipulative question. It isn't an influencing question. An influencing question could be something like, how do you think that stealing will affect your future? So what you're doing in those moments is you're asking specific questions to help them process. And so in the application portion here, we're going to have you explore a couple of different scenarios, a couple of different videos to let you think about what kinds of questions would I want to ask and what kinds of things am I going to want to get from this. In the module module discussion board, you are going to be focusing on how do I ask an open-ended orienting question. So how do I understand what's going on with somebody, and how do I ask it in an open-ended way? And so you're going to practice some things, but think about the questions as something that you're not just going to practice in this module, but asking good questions and good follow-up questions takes a lot of practice. So try to do it and pay attention to the things that you see, the people that ask questions around you. Listen to other people in the way that they ask good questions.